Hey, what's up, folks? We have a jam-packed show for you today, and you know I did my research.
It's like, what happened to the HIPAA laws? You know, or OSHA, one of them, I forgot, I think it's HIPAA.
Ice Cube hit Joe Rogan on his tour of what he calls exposing the gatekeepers. You're going to want to hear what he said.
Some of you may not have realized that I'm not part of the club. And a lot of you listening to me right here, right now, you're not part of the club either.
Joy Reid says she wouldn't have got into Harvard without affirmative action.
Well, let me just be clear. I got into Harvard only because of affirmative action.
Yeah, we can tell. And Jen Psaki suggests that Muslim Americans are being psyoped by white conservatives.
The right wing is reviving that same playbook, this time with Muslim Americans and trans people.
What in the heck is going on in France, and are they having their George Floyd moment? We'll talk about it. Trump got booed at his rally for calling out Lindsey Graham and says he's willing to go back to South Carolina to campaign for Lindsey Graham. I wonder how they're gonna spin this one.
I'm gonna have to work on these people. I'm gonna have to. All right.
Marjorie Taylor Greene responded to one of my tweets and said that she wants to investigate COVID vaccine injuries with a subcommittee in Congress. This comic that I'm gonna put on the screen and explain later is probably the dumbest one I've ever seen in my life, and that's saying a lot because I've seen a lot of dumb stuff. And massive social media superstar and bodybuilder Joe Lindner died recently from what the media is saying is an aneurysm in his neck. We're gonna watch an interesting clip about him, and I'm not saying this is why he died, but he did say he got vaccinated 4 times and was experiencing some weird problems after it.
Did you get the vax?
I got the vaccine.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Even 4.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
God bless you guys, Dream Rare Podcast. This is a jam-packed edition. I'm excited. Lots of stuff. Show starts now. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Dream Rare Podcast, the day before 4th of July. And I want to let you guys know I have 7 stories. I hope you stay tuned. It's going to be a jam-packed show. And if you do stay tuned at the end, I'm going to turn YouTube comments on for everyone. Right now, they're on for members only. Facebook, it's all good. I got to concentrate because there's 7 stories. So let's get into it. The first out of 7 stories is Ice Cube went on Joe Rogan. He explained again how he turned down a $9 million movie deal in order to maintain his medical liberty and not get the COVID vaccine. And he's been saying he's going on a tour to expose the club or the gatekeepers. And he's tired of the people at the top of the pyramid bullying him and pushing him around. So let's just take a little clip that I clipped up and watch it.
It's like, what happened to the HIPAA laws? You know, or OSHA, one of them, I forgot, I think it's HIPAA, you know, where you're not supposed to reveal a person's medical status. And put pressure on me, everybody around me telling me how stupid I am so I can go get vaxxed and say, you know, please let me do the movie. You know, that was never going to happen. I don't care if it was 20 million. That was never going to happen.
And if you got injured from that vaccine, you would have paid that $20 million to be healthy again.
Damn right. Yo, what's cracking? You know what it is. It's your homeboy Ice Cube. And some of you may not have realized that I'm not part of the club. And a lot of you listening to me right here, right now, you're not part of the club either. And what I realized with the club is what makes them so mad is when you don't want to be a part of their fucking club. That pisses them off.
So I covered this story in full as a journalist on streamrare.com. It's on my website. I covered the entire story. It seems like he's ticked off for 2 reasons, and he wants to go on a podcast tour and tell everybody about how he's feeling. One of them is he got bullied during COVID, like tens of millions of Americans, if not more, into losing a lot of money. And I guess he considers it, he says, I didn't lose the money because I never had it in the first place. I turned it down. But, you know, deals that he would have had because he didn't want to get the vaccine or listen to their rules, He didn't like getting bullied. And also he runs a 3v3 league. I think it's called 3-on-3. I don't know the exact name. He was wearing the shirt. And he started a league for the summer to entertain people. And he says that the gatekeepers in the NBA don't let people talk about it on television. And between how he was treated during the COVID tyranny and his league that he's trying to launch, he just seems ticked off by the gatekeepers and he wants to tell everybody about it. So thank you, Ice Cube. We appreciate free thought, even if we don't agree on every political issue. Thanks for sharing your story and having the confidence to come out and do that. And I wanted to say too, Joe Rogan was talking to Ice Cube, and I can't remember the exact word. I listened to the podcast and he said, oh, they really messed up. They made a mistake. And this is what is really annoying me. And it's not just Joe Rogan. I like Joe Rogan. It's not just like people saying, oh, Trump made a mistake, or like, oh, they didn't know what they were doing. I like to explain this stuff because I don't think it was a mistake. And I don't say it to be hateful to Rogan, who I like, or Trump, who I liked at some point, but I think they're going to do it again if people don't figure it out how they do it. Like, to the average person, it's like, oh, they just messed up. Like Rochelle Walensky messed up. Trump messed up. The CDC messed up. The FDA messed up. Or like, Pfizer just messed up. Look into their history. I don't believe it's a mess up. I believe they're taking advantage of liability laws such as the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act and other ones. And this one was under the PrEP Act. Under an emergency, they have no liability for side effects, injuries, and deaths. So if they had liability, I don't think they would have made the mistake, because I don't think it's a mistake when you come out with record profits. So I don't say this to be petty, but I don't think this isn't going to happen again. Or let me rephrase that because it was confusing. I think things like this will happen again, as long as everybody's so naive about it and says, oh, they just happened to make a mistake that put $30 billion in their bank account. They just happened to make a mistake. The government, who owns part of the Moderna patent and is suing Pfizer over it, there's a huge lawsuit between Moderna and Pfizer over who gets the money for the technology that they've had, sitting with patents for decades. So I just don't want to be a jerk about this. And I know people like perceive it as hate. The truth sounds like hate speech when you hate the truth. If you like Rogan, maybe you think I'm being hateful even though I like him. Or if you like Trump, you call it hate speech now when I point this stuff out. I don't think he made a mistake. I don't think it's this shocking confusion of like, oh my gosh, we just said all these things and it ended up not being true, and whoops. I mean, they're going to do it again. Look into the liability laws, look into the PrEP Act, look into how big pharma operates, and then maybe we won't just keep bumping our heads on the wall for 30 years. I have no doubt in my mind that the government and certain industries are going to take advantage of a population that can't get to the bottom of what really happened. So that's all I'll say on that. I could talk about it a lot, but I'd rather move on because I got a bunch of stories to talk about. So the next one is about Joy Reid and Jen Psaki. Joy Reid came out and said, I wouldn't have got into Harvard without affirmative action.
Well, let me just be clear. I got into Harvard only because of affirmative action. I went to a school no one had ever heard of in Denver, Colorado, in a small suburb.
Trust me, we could tell. Like, it's not a shocking reveal. Like, I only got into Harvard because of affirmative action. Really? You're one of the dumbest people I've ever seen on television, which is insane because, like, most people on there are pretty dumb. I mean, there's some smart people on television, don't get me wrong, but it's like, is that supposed to make people not want it or something? Like, I only got in because of, I know, I've heard you talk. I listened to your logic. It's not very good in my view. So, yeah, we know. And I'm sure there were thousands of Asian Americans that probably were, earned their way there that you cut in front of and now use that to get a job on MSNBC and torture the nation with your horrible ideas and politics. But, God bless you and good luck at whatever you're trying to do. I'm not quite sure, but I'm not a fan. I don't subject myself to that type of television. With that being said, Jen Psaki came out recently, and I have to give credit where it's due. I don't like this lady. I find her to be very evil. I thought that her piece was interesting, though, as far as like MSNBC, which I consider a garbage network. I thought that she did a pretty, and I don't agree with what she was saying, but it was pretty crafty. She put together a nice little presentation that I disagree with. But as far as the other Looney Tunes on those networks, I was like, I could see how people would want to watch this. I'm not one of them, but, I like to be as objective as I can. But here's a point that Glenn Greenwald made about her little segment, and I think he nailed it. I like Glenn Greenwald. He's one of my favorite journalists. Let's look.
The right wing is reviving that same playbook, this time with Muslim Americans and trans people. Hear me out here. The GOP is trying to recruit Muslim Americans.
So this is what Glenn Greenwald said, and I think it's genius. He said, I observed yesterday that liberals don't believe non-white people are capable of forming dissenting views on their own. Here's Jen Psaki claiming the only reason Muslim Americans object to the trans dogma in schools is because white conservatives are manipulating them into it. Glenn is a left-leaning journalist, but he's really one of the last truth tellers out there on all sides, but especially on the left. And he's laughing at her whole take, although it was very witty and well put together, in my opinion. This idea as if Muslim Americans can't feel this way on their own, they need to be tricked by white conservatives. It's like everyone believed what white conservatives believe now 10 years ago. Obama, in many ways, and Clinton, in many ways, were further right than Trump was on the LGBT issue. Like, Obama went into office not supporting gay marriage. Trump went into office supporting gay marriage. Bill Clinton could have never gotten elected doing the things that Joe Biden's doing. And the left and the Jen Psakis of the world, they sit here and act as if Muslims don't have their own ideology and religion, and only a white conservative could trick them into disagreeing with the trans school ideology. Like, yeah, it's the white guy convincing you Muslims. They have something called the Quran, Jen Psaki. Maybe you should check it out and read it. And I don't know how compatible it is with modern day liberalism and the dogma in schools, as Glenn Greenwald calls it. So, it's just, they think so lowly of other people. They think that no one can do anything without them. And I think it's been coined as the bigotry of low expectations, or the soft bigotry of low expectations, when you think that they need that. They need your help. They need this. They need that. Only you can tell them. Only you can trick them, as if they're not capable of forming thoughts and opinions and religions on their own, or religious views of their own. I like Glenn Greenwald's comment. I think it was pretty flawless. And, it's pretty sad that they think that other cultures hate this because of white people. It's like, go to Saudi Arabia. They dislike it more than white conservatives do. White conservatives are liberal compared to Muslims in most Muslim countries. Like, I think that most conservative men in America are like first and second wave feminism. They'll be like, we disagree with Bud Light cans, but we're fine with women in the workforce, and we're fine with women in the military. And it's like, this is first and second wave feminism. The Republicans are liberal feminists compared to Islamic people of darker skin in other countries. So Jen Psaki has a rude awakening if she thinks that white people are behind, people around the world disagreeing with trans escalation. She'll find out eventually. I mean, it's just basically pretty obvious. And what is there really left to be said that I haven't already said? Next story I want to talk about is France. A lot of people have been asking me to cover this. There have been riots in France, protests turned into riots, a lot of burnings, a lot of violence. It looks crazy. Now, what is going on? I just want to give a quick briefing of why it's happening, and then I'll tell you my opinion. I've heard a bunch of different sides, and I'm not there to report on the ground, so I can only tell you so much. But a 17-year-old boy was shot to death by a French police officer. This guy was of Algerian descent and was considered a minority. Apparently, he was recklessly driving, or they thought he was, and he'd been stopped before and was going to court later that year, although he'd never been charged. Apparently, he wasn't stopping at the police stops when they asked him to, and somehow it escalated and the police shot him and killed him. And it's horrible. And they're pretty much having their George Floyd moment. That's what it seems like to me. A minority was killed by the police, and people are rioting and burning stuff down to protest, aka riot. First thing I'll say is this: I think it's an insane concept. It happened in America as well. People are trying to prove that they're not criminals and they're not committing crimes. So in order to prove that, they just start committing crimes. It's like, we're not committing crimes. Let's go commit crimes to prove we're not committing crimes. It's like, that doesn't really say the message that you think it says. But, if you think burning down ancient libraries and burning down innocent people's stuff proves that you're not a criminal or disproportionately committing crimes, or that you're totally innocent and a good person, I'm not getting the message. It's not really resonating with me. Like, I would never burn down a library because I was pissed at something. I wouldn't do it in Austin, Texas, San Francisco, New York. I wouldn't do it in my least favorite city and most liberal place in America because I'm not a complete savage. I don't know why. Like, I wouldn't do it to any race, any religion. I'd never go to another country and do it. It's just not who I am. I don't see the benefit of burning things down and committing arson in order to prove that, you're innocent. it's a shocking concept that I guess is going to become more common. I don't live in France, so I can't really tell you too much more about it. I've heard some takes. People, I would guess that left wingers would say the police are disproportionately killing minorities, and the only way to stop that is to just run rampant around the city, burning stuff down. I don't get it. Some will say that France does not take care of poor and lower class people. I'm sure the right wing is saying, I know they're saying it because I read it. They're saying that this is I guess, this is a result of unfettered immigration or refugees. You bring in a lot of people from other countries that don't care about France or French people or their history. They have no connection to the libraries, to the infrastructure like your average Frenchman would. So they have no problem burning it down and destroying the city, when something goes wrong. And, I think there's elements of truth to both sides, but I'm definitely more on the side of I haven't looked into it enough to know whether the police was truly wilding or not. The grandma of the person who died is telling people to stop rioting, just like George Floyd's family was telling people to stop rioting. So, whether it was a true evil from the police or not, I just don't understand the concept of burning and destroying things. It makes you look like a savage. It makes you look evil. And it doesn't bring the point that you think. So if a police did something wrong, how is destroying a city going to do anything? And before I move on, it's funny because, well, I wouldn't say funny, but it's interesting. In America, the George Floyd riots ravaged the whole country. And then Republicans set themselves up or got set up at the Capitol. And that kind of dominated the narrative. Now you'll see people say, well, anomaly, how could you just say that when, white people or conservatives or Trump supporters of all kinds, they went and did that at the Capitol. They acted like animals or, and it's what a perfect setup that was, because we could have talked about the George Floyd riots for years. But now in the NFL, one coach said he thought the BLM riots were worse than the George Floyd riots, was worse than the Capitol. And they basically told him to shut up. So it's that narrative did a lot of things, the Capitol, which was stupid in my opinion. And not everyone did something, but some people did do stupid stuff. It's true. It's it got a lot of people arrested. It got the Biden administration to basically have something to go after you for. It covered up the George Floyd riots and gave the left a narrative to point out when you pointed at that. And also it got a lot of anti-lockdown protesters, instead of actually sticking to their values. A lot of anti-lockdown and I would say mandate protesters fell in love with the vaccine salesman, aka Donald Trump. So they all went to go support him and organize at the whatever it was, I guess, vaccine rally, Lindsey Graham rally. I don't know what he's doing, the blame Mike Pence rally, and you're going to overturn the election rally. And every organizer that went got set up. And then all of a sudden the Biden administration gets in, starts persecuting right wingers. And now there's nobody left to protest the lockdowns and the Democratic tyranny because they all got set up at the Capitol. So all I'm going to say is, be wise, because it's a game of chess out here. And the Democrats seem like they play chess and the right seems like they play checkers, in my personal opinion. God bless the kid who got killed. God bless everybody in France. I'm not going to weigh in on exactly what happened with the police because I don't know enough. So I'm just going to say God bless everybody involved, but they're having their George Floyd moment. That's what it looks like to me. Let me know what you think in the comment section, but burning stuff down is a psychotic way to respond to anything. I mean, I don't care what side of politics or what race you are. It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't really portray the message that you think it portrays. But maybe people don't care. That seems what it's like to me. Anyway, next story I want to talk about real quick is Donald Trump. He was on stage after he let Lindsey Graham speak at his rally, and people started booing Trump and Lindsey Graham, mostly Lindsey Graham, when Trump brought him up. And Trump basically was like, I got to work on these people, and even said he would campaign for Lindsey Graham and come back to South Carolina. Let's take a watch.
And again, Senator Lindsey Graham, who is really I'm going to have to work. I'm going to have to work on these people. I'm going to have to. All right. He's there. He's there when you need him. He's there when you need him. I'm going to get him straightened up. Do you mind if I come here and campaign a little bit for you? I'll tell you what. He was one of my earliest endorsements right from the go, and I appreciate it very much. I appreciate it, Lindsey.
Trump says he was one of his earliest endorsements. I mean, you could Google it. Lindsey Graham has stabbed Trump in the back 100 times. Lindsey Graham did not want Trump to win for president at first. Like, I don't know what planet Trump is living in, saying that Lindsey Graham was one of his earliest endorsements. Where? Go look it up. Lindsey Graham has always just manipulated Trump. Apparently, it's that easy. But I don't know how people are going to spin it. I know people are probably going to get mad at my take on this, but I don't know. Like he hears the booze and he doesn't think like, oh, I'm betraying my base or making a mistake. He's like, I got to work on these people. To me, that's like him saying he needs to reprogram his base. He's like, oh, don't worry, I'll work on them. I know that they're so subservient to me that I'll fix it. I'll come campaign for you. You're gonna go to South Carolina and campaign for Lindsey Graham. You want him to get in office. And here's the thing. If MAGA and Trump and his base and his movement and his campaign, if they didn't have double standards, I wouldn't care. Like if they had the same grace that they have with Trump, with Lindsey Graham, with DeSantis and others and Thomas Massie, I'd be totally fine with it. It's like, sure, yeah, it's politics. I mean, you hired terribly, you hang out with horrible people, they walk all over you, but maybe you have to do that. I don't know. I'd be able to give Trump grace, but Trump has basically brainwashed his movement into thinking that when other people do it, it's rhino activity and they're traitors. But when he does it, it's like a secret plan. Like, for instance, you'll have a lot of people say, well, Karl Rove is working with DeSantis and Karl Rove is a Bush guy. And that means that DeSantis is a Bush guy. And it's like, well, Karl Rove also worked on Trump's 2020 campaign. Like, do people know that? I don't even think people know that because Trump never says it. Some people will say, well, Thomas Massie endorsed Mitch McConnell. He should be primary. Thomas Massie, by the way, one of the best, if not the best congressman we have, one of the only ethical people in Washington. DC Drano and a bunch of other Trump worshiping, right-wing celebrities are trying to cancel and primary. People are now posting like, look, he endorsed Mitch McConnell. Trump also endorsed Mitch McConnell in 2020. He gave him a full and total endorsement. And they keep circulating this picture of Thomas Massie at a Mitch McConnell rally endorsing him. But what they won't show you is the picture that they're circulating. It says Trump. They cut it out so you couldn't see it, but it's actually a Trump Mitch McConnell event. So it's like if you're mad at Mitch McConnell or you're mad at Thomas Massie for that, and he's at a Trump Mitch McConnell event, why kick Thomas Massie out of the party? Yet you're okay with Donald Trump re-endorsing and also saying he'll go to South Carolina and campaign for Lindsey Graham. I've said my opinion a bunch of times. I think Trump has the base under a spell. If I were to tell you this before I move on, if I were to tell you that the opposition to Democrats and the opposition to the deep state was a guy who did vaccine socialism for Big Pharma, sells vaccines more shamelessly than Bill Gates in 2023 and won't admit a single flaw, and that person's being supported and endorsed by Alex Jones, you would think I'm crazy. You're like, no way the opposition leader in the Republican Party would be selling. It's like it's like the whole movement's controlled opposition now. Alex Jones is lying about it and covering it up, and nobody wants to talk about it. Trump's on stage with Lindsey Graham, and that's just totally normal. It's like it's so obvious that Trump knows that he psychologically controls his base. Even if they'll boo, he's just like, they still like me. I'll fix them. They'll get over it, just like they get over everything. I got these guys wrapped around my finger. He knows what a spell he has under people. So it's like he'll endorse Lindsey Graham, the worst rhino in Congress, probably the worst, one of the architects of the Ukraine war. He helped, fuel tensions for years between Russia and Ukraine. But, that's fine. It's fine when he does that. It's just not fine when, DeSantis does something. I guess that's just the movement now. It's not really ideological anymore. It's just a idol worshiping movement around a guy who sells vaccines harder than Bill Gates, offered Bill Gates a White House position, and campaigns in 2023 for Lindsey Graham. So, I'm at peace with it. I understand that people want that, and America's just going to keep getting scammed and bamboozled. And it is what it is. I'm politically homeless now, but the opposition is completely controlled and nobody seems to care, although more and more people are waking up to it. So let me know your sad excuse in the comment section for why Trump says he'll go and campaign for the worst rhino in Congress, yet Trump worshipers like DC Drano and Cat Turd are trying to cancel and primary Thomas Massie, who is 1,000 times better than Lindsey Graham and 20 times better than Donald Trump. What's your logic of kicking out the best Republican in Congress because he doesn't drool over the feet of Donald Trump, but making excuses for the biggest rhino in Congress who could easily get primaried. I mean, Trump supporters, conservatives, everybody. Nobody likes Lindsey Graham. He could lose a primary by like 50 points if someone actually, primaried him. But, Donald Trump's not trying to primary him. Donald Trump's friends with Gavin Newsom. He's friends with Lindsey Graham. He's friends with Bill Gates. But he has you under a spell. So as long as you run circles around him, nothing will ever get done. And I think that's the real way the elections are taken, is because it doesn't matter who wins. You get Donald Trump, you still get lockdown. You know what I'm saying? You still get Operation Warp Speed. I don't think the elites really care about the little proxy war between Trump and DeSantis and Biden and Hunter Biden. It's like, it's low level entertainment for the masses, and you'll get a Jim Jordan complaining or whatever. And, the cycle will continue. That's my opinion. I understand it'll be unpopular, but I don't care. So is my opinion about the lockdown in April 2020. Everybody got mad at me, and now everybody could look at my tweets. Everything I said in April is still true to this day. So sometimes the truth is unpopular, but I'm okay with it. And sometimes when you say the truth, people will consider it hate speech. A lot of people will be like, oh, you just hate. It's hate. It's like, is it hate or do you just hate to hear it? That's my take. Let me know yours. Next story is Marjorie Taylor Greene actually responded to one of my tweets. I tweeted a podcast of Anthony Smith, who is an MMA UFC fighter, and Michael Bisping, who was a UFC fighter. They're both commentators. They were both vaccinated because they wanted to keep their job at ESPN or one of these networks because they're commentators as well. And I just found a podcast. I'm sorry if I got you in trouble, Anthony Smith and Bisping, because they posted this podcast on audio and I listened to it and they cut it out of their YouTube network because I don't think they wanted to talk about the vaccine on YouTube. Understandable, but sorry, it was compelling. I posted it and Marjorie retweeted it. So let's listen to just a little clip of them talking about the vaccine and their personal family experiences with it. I just chopped up a few clips from the podcast.
When my mom passed, right, she got sick immediately after getting her booster. Like, she was fairly healthy, but she got sick immediately after that. So she got her booster and was in a coma in like 2 weeks. So,
well, I don't have the data or the stats or anything like that, but I do know that the whole thing was absolute bullshit now. Yeah. And listen, I'll be the first.
And I'm vaccinated, and then I end up with a blood clot. What are the chances of that? Like, never had any issues at all. I'm really, really healthy. And then
and I got it as well. I didn't get the boosters or anything, but I admit I was all about it at the time, and now I think the whole thing's goddamn bullshit. I think the whole thing's bullshit. But I just, everyone comes out. Pardon me.
I did it to keep my job.
Well, so did I. ESPN, and then there was acting roles.
So they both said they got the vaccine to keep their job. Anthony Smith said that his mom went in a coma 2 weeks after getting the booster and immediately fell ill after. And he said that he got blood clots after getting the vaccine. He never had blood clots. I thought it was interesting. I posted it on Twitter and I printed it out here and did an article about it. You can see Marjorie Taylor Greene responded to it and said, I want to investigate vaccine side effects on our COVID subcommittee. We have to do it. There are too many of these stories. So Marjorie's trying to use her power in Congress to investigate vaccine side effects because there's a lot of stories like that. Michael Bisping, I've heard that he's more liberal. He was all about the vaccine. Even he thinks it's BS now. Anthony Smith is intelligent and said, what he said, you heard it. Here's what I'll say before I move on. I think that it's interesting that the VAERS reporting, that's the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, it's called VAERS. People don't know the history because the media says it's a conspiracy theory. The media says it's overhyped and it's over-reporting, etc. RFK would say it's underreported. But long story short, VAERS reporting system is not a conspiracy theory. I'm not saying it's 100% accurate, but the VAERS reporting system is a government reporting system. It's the government reporting system. It's the one they created when Ronald Reagan gave a liability shield to Big Pharma. Ronald Reagan signed something in 1986, I believe. It's called the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. Before that, just like pharmacy commercials and all the ones you see with all the side effects listed, Big Pharma was liable for them and they had to cover them. And that's why I believe on pharmacy commercials, they talk about them, because if they don't name them and it happens, they could get in trouble. Vaccine manufacturers were not doing well because a lot of people were suing them because their kids or someone that they knew were getting injured, or they said they were getting injured. And the only way to remedy that and save the vaccine industry was the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, which was signed by Reagan. And after that happened, any vaccine that was on the childhood schedule that they're pumping into your kids, if something happened to your kid, Big Pharma and the vaccine manufacturer have no liability, not for a side effect, not for an injury, not for an adverse event, not for death. They're completely immune from getting sued financially. Okay. With that being said, the government knew that they needed to track vaccine injuries, because if there's going to be this massive liability shield that protects Big Pharma, and now they get away with pretty much anything because it's a numbers game and they think that it's for the greater good, they had to create a database to keep all the vaccine injuries database so they could go over them and scan them and monitor them. If there was a lot of them, then the FDA, the CDC, et cetera, would investigate. So that's what VAERS reporting is. Isn't that kind of crazy that the mainstream media acts like it's a conspiracy theory created by Alex Jones on Infowars.com? Isn't that odd? Even though it was created by the government literally to track them. When Marjorie Taylor Greene mentions VAERS reporting, they actually, like she's a psychopath, when it was created by the government for that exact purpose. Under the emergency for COVID, which was declared by the HHS secretary, which just so happened to be Alex Azar, hired by Trump, a Eli Lilly pharmacy executive and lobbyist. That's who declared the emergency. Once the emergency is declared, the PrEP Act kicks in because it's not a childhood vaccine, or it wasn't on the schedule yet. And now they have no liability the same way that. So I'm not saying VAERS reporting is 100% accurate, but it was created to database injuries to look at. But they don't want to talk about it. So all I'm going to say is this. Thank you, Marjorie, for saying that you want to look into it. And I think it's extremely important. And the leading two candidates of the next election, Donald Trump, who she supports and endorses, and Joe Biden, they both had a hand in either the they both had a hand in the socialism of the vaccines, buying it, buying the doses, funding it. So neither of them want to talk about it. Trump routinely still in 2023 covers up vaccine injuries, pretends like they don't exist, even though he knows that he used to talk about it all the time. But now that he's the father of the vaccine, now that he's in on the corruption, he acts oblivious to it and says it saved 100 million lives. Like, Trump is a pathological liar for Big Pharma. I consider him at this point an evil person. He's just like controlled opposition for, meat for the Republican base, so they can like run circles around a guy who's not going to uncover this stuff. And, all I'm going to say is it's going to happen again. If your idea of fighting the deep state is running circles around a guy who refuses to talk about vaccine injuries, said it saved 100 million lives, and is proud of socialism when he does it for the most corrupt industry in the world, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you get scammed again. You're begging for it, basically. It's like a kid drawing on the walls and you tell him, good job, I'm going to give you chocolate every time you do it. You're going to get scammed again. You're going to get got. Our freedom wasn't given back. It wasn't earned in many ways. They just kind of tossed it back, and they're gonna probably do something again. Why wouldn't they? Both sides are so brainwashed around this fake narrative. It's like, yeah, people can write it off and be like, oh, Operation Warp Speed was good. No, it wasn't. Oh, this is fine because he didn't mandate it. No, it's not. If you think that, you only think that because Trump did it. If Hillary did it, you'd agree with me. If Mitt Romney did it, you'd agree with me. If Joe Biden did it, you'd agree with me. If Ron DeSantis did it, you'd agree with me. But only because Donald Trump did it. Now they've tricked you into defending and supporting a vaccine socialist scheme with a pharmacy lobbyist declaring an emergency to shield from liability. And you have imbeciles like David Harris trying to tell people maybe it saved the world from a 5-year lockdown. Or maybe you just want to sell more t-shirts, David, and you don't want to question Daddy Mar-a-Lago because you want to slurp down stakes and profit off him and never question it. But if DeSantis or someone else did it, you would, And it's like, I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm getting tired of these fake influencers just filling up space, doing nothing. It's like there's evidence out there that Donald Trump tried to hire Bill Gates for a White House position. It's out there. Google it. Why won't anyone ask him this in an interview? Because they want to suck down Mar-a-Lago's stakes. They want to make millions of dollars off the back of Donald Trump and basically just use him for their own personal benefit while conning the conservative base into thinking that's normal. If DeSantis tried to hire Bill Gates, don't you think they'd publish it? If Mitt Romney was president and he tried to hire Bill Gates before a pandemic lockdown, don't you think people would publish it and ask it? But when Donald Trump does it, apparently I'm the only one who notices it because they get financially rewarded for turning a blind eye on it. So to me, the whole movement is controlled opposition at this point. That's fine. I guess if people want that, they'll reap what they sow when it comes to that. God bless these people. I don't hate them as people. It's just like the whole movement at this point, it is just like a joke. But thank you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for looking into that. If nothing is done about this stuff and we just run circles around Hunter Biden and Donald Trump and Ron DeSanctimonious, who does all the same stuff Trump does, but nobody wants to talk about it. Like, it's all theater. It's all fake theater. It's all fake little proxy wars. And the Democrat and Republican Party, they both came together. They both did socialism. They both did elements of communism. They both did big pharma scams. And now they're going to put up two 80-year-olds fighting over like fake stuff. So you never get to the bottom of it. I appreciate that Marjorie Taylor Greene is willing to investigate vaccine side effects, despite the fact that Donald Trump continuously covers them up and acts like they don't exist because he himself says he's the father of the vaccine. Truly crazy stuff going on. It's pretty sad, but it is what it is. I guess that's just what people want. They want a show, and they want to feel like their guy is fighting the other guy. But I just don't see anything changing until people wake up to what really happened. If you write off the lockdowns and be like, oh, Trump got tricked, Trump got fooled, he made a mistake, it was just the Democrats, her. It's like you're telling the elites, I'm stupid. You're telling the elites, I'm a sheep. If you give me a character in a red hat in a political party, I'll fall for anything. I'll make excuses for things I don't like. You're telling this to the elites. Please treat me like an animal. And then they're like, okay. And then you're like, who did this to me? The left. It's like, you're begging to get scammed. You want it so badly. If they could package the scam and put a MAGA hat on it, you'll make excuses for literal communism. So, that's my opinion. Once again, unpopular, but I'm at peace with the fact that, they've controlled the opposition. They've literally got people running in circles around a guy who tried to hire Bill Gates. As every influencer's like, I don't like Bill Gates. Well, did you ever ask Daddy? Did you ever look up and ask Daddy Trump if he likes Bill Gates? Because maybe he doesn't agree with you. Maybe he took a meeting with him and then implemented it via executive order a year later. I know you guys don't want to talk about that, right? You just want to kick Thomas Massie out of the party. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's really going to do a lot. Let's kick the only guy who called out the lockdown out of the party. What are we going to replace him with? Another Lindsey Graham? It's like Donald Trump's got thousands of great supporters. Why doesn't he platform them at his rally? He's platforming Lindsey Graham. It's the most obvious controlled opposition stuff. Like, hey guys, I'm going to campaign for Lindsey Graham. And they're like, boo. And he's like, yeah, I'll work on these people. Don't worry. I'll campaign for Lindsey. It's like, how much more obvious could it possibly get? It's so embarrassing. It's crazy, but it is what it is. I'm going to move on to the next story because I could talk about this all day. So next story I want to talk about is probably the dumbest cartoon I've ever seen in my life. It's like psychotically stupid. Let's take a look at it. So I don't know who this is, Lainey Molnar, but she has, if you could see, it's a picture of a black woman. One is chubby and one is skinny. And then the top picture is a dog. It's two different breeds of dogs. And it says, you wouldn't expect this to turn into this by diet and exercise. So why would you expect this to turn into this? And the point she's making is like, I don't even know. Honestly, she's comparing a black woman to a dog, which is kind of insane. But I guess I could like understand what she's trying to say. I'm not trying to be a dick, but like, it's a pretty crazy cartoon. Hold on. I'm going to bring it up again real quick. So, that's two different breeds of dogs. Like they're both healthy dogs. Both of those are healthy weight dogs. They're just like one's a Chihuahua and one's like a massive dog. And she's like, if you wouldn't expect a massive healthy dog to turn into a little breed healthy dog, why would you expect an overweight woman to turn into a skinny woman? It's like, what are you talking about? I understand when modeling agencies want you to have like thinner thighs and like maybe you just have like, a wide frame. Yeah, you're not going to get a different frame on you, but if you're overweight, you can lose weight. And a dog, that one breed of dog couldn't turn into the other breed of dog. It's a terrible analogy. It's a horrible example. And I'm reading the comments on this thing and people are like, this is the most logical thing I've ever seen. This is the most logical thing you've ever seen. It's literally the stupidest cartoon I've ever seen in my life. They didn't even use the same breed of dog. They used two different size dogs and then said, why would this woman be able to turn into this woman? I don't know what else I could really say about this besides I have compassion for, women who are larger. I have compassion for women with larger frames, but you can exercise, you can get in better shape. That's just part of nature. And I guess this is part of the left now. They just act like obesity is awesome and like it's just a part of who you are. And, you know, there's no way to possibly change it. And it's a bad message. It's nice to be nice, but that's just the craziest cartoon I've ever seen in my life. I don't really know what to say about it. And I'm just shocked reading the comments on Instagram of people who are like, yeah, that's so logical. It's really not. It's really stupid. Hopefully these people find God or possibly, a health coach or something. Cause it's not good logic there. Last story I want to talk about real quick, and then I'm going to turn on the YouTube comments and chat for a little bit, but I want to keep this under an hour. The last story is Joe Lindner. I think he was 30 years old. He had 8 million followers on Instagram. I mean, this guy was a mega star. I never heard of him before, but I looked at him after. Mega star. He died of an aneurysm in his neck. I guess he had a pain in his neck for a few days, didn't get it checked out, dropped dead. Really sad stuff. I want to say this, weightlifters and bodybuilders that take a lot of PEDs, etc., they have always had increased chances of stuff because they're on so many different drugs and they're pushing their body to the limit. So I'm not suggesting that this was anything but that, but I do have to say I did find a podcast through my friend, and he did mention he was 4-time vaccinated, and after he got his vaccine, he started getting weird blood tests and he had to do a whole plasma thing. So I'm just going to play a clip. It's obviously edited and chopped up. I don't want to get copyright stricken. But I mean, I think this is part of something to at least hear. I don't know if the media is going to get mad at this, but it did happen. So here it is.
Did you get the vax?
I got the vaccine.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Even 4.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, and also, Brew, you know how it is. This is the same like you go to a party.
You were worried about your heart?
And you are with the wrong people. All of a sudden, you might do something on this party that you don't want to do because there's... Oh my God, this turns into weird conspiracy theories because I did blood cleaning twice after all this. I show it to the doctor and we kind of see these particles and I'm like, what is this? And then they all
No way, dude. Shut the f*** up.
This is from this. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I show it to another of my friends, and there's all kind of hidden websites that you can't get to, but it's like the dark media kind of web.
Yeah, so I mean, he mentions that he got 4 times vaccinated, and he was experiencing some weird blood stuff. So he went to a doctor and got some sort of blood plasma transfer. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, I'm not going to over speculate on it. It could have been anything. I'm sure he was on a lot of performance enhancing drugs. It sounded like, I listened to that podcast, it sounded like he got a lot of blood tests and was always checking himself. So he wasn't lazy on that note. Really sad stuff either way. Anytime someone passes young, it could have been anything, but obviously people are going to speculate about the big pharma product more and more and more because, there's a huge cover up going on. It's like they're acting like it doesn't exist at all. They know it exists. Like they know that side effects to vaccines exist. How do I know that they know? It's because why would they protect themselves from liability if they didn't think they existed? If no side effects existed, if nobody would get hurt, there would be no National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. There would be no PrEP Act. They pass these things because they don't want liability in a case of an emergency or with a product that goes out to tens of millions of people. I mean, the craziest part about this stuff is I watch television. And my one friend sent me a pharma ad and he said, these pharma ads are like an IQ test because it's like trying to cure you from something that's not a big deal. And the side effects are 1,000 times worse than the cure, what they're curing you from. And it's like these pharmacy ads, which are all over the television because our country's so corrupt and in bed with big pharma. It couldn't be more obvious. Like you watch a pharma commercial for a pill and it says, talk to your doctor if you got the vaccine, or if you got the vaccine, you shouldn't take this. Like if you're pregnant, you shouldn't take this. I've seen that 5 different times. If you got the vaccine, make sure you talk to your doctor because this probably isn't for you. Something along those lines. So why would getting a vaccine matter with the medicine? Well, because it must have an effect with the medicine and they don't think you should double up on it. Well, then why didn't they tell this to people when they told everybody to get the vaccine? They said, get the vaccine. Doesn't matter if you're this. Doesn't matter if you're that. Doesn't matter if you're a kid. Doesn't matter if you're pregnant. Go get it. Go get it. Go get it. Doesn't matter what you are. Doesn't matter. Go. Why are they allowed to do that? They're allowed to do that because they have no liability. If Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson were under the same liability as a pill, they'd have to list all of their side effects in the commercial. But because it's not that, they don't have to mention it. You understand? It's so obvious. So right now, what I see is you have the two leading candidates of the presidency. They don't want to talk about it because this narrative is not convenient for their reelection. And here's a point I want to make too. People are acting like Trump is doing this because he has to please the left. Guys, most liberals know it was a scam. Most liberals know they got lied to. Most pro-vaccine people don't even trust it. Most pro-vaccine people are not thrilled with the results because they were told it was going to stop transmission or whatever. So this idea that Donald Trump is pandering to a minority. He's pandering to the Bill Gateses of the world. He's pandering to the Pfizers of the world. He's pandering to the pharmacy lobbyists, and he's pandering to the people making money off it. Liberals are not going to vote for Donald Trump if he sells the vaccine harder than Bill Gates. Even Bill Gates respects enough to be like, there's problems with the vaccine. Bill Gates has said there's 3 problems with the vaccine. I don't like Bill Gates. We disagree on almost everything, but he's even willing to admit that there's 3 issues with it. Trump won't do that. He's a pathological liar. So now the election is from Joe Biden, who's a disaster, and a guy who's trying to cover up 2020 and act like it never happened because it's not convenient to his campaign because he made a lot of errors that he's not willing to admit. How do people not get what's going on? Oh, but Anomaly, I don't care about 2020 anymore. Then you deserve to get scammed. You don't care about 2020, but you care about the economy. The economy got imploded in 2020. They shut down everything for 15 days and then 30 days. I'm not blaming that specifically on Trump, but it's one of those things where it's like, if you think you're going to get an economy, but you're not going to solve this problem, you deserve to lose it again. You know, you deserve to get scammed again. You're going to get scammed again. Why wouldn't you? You're open for it. So, you know, there's other candidates in this election. You don't have to like them or trust them, but there's multiple candidates in this election that are running on the platform of accountability for big pharma. RFK is the obvious one. He knows all this stuff. He speaks about it fluently. He is like an encyclopedia when it comes to the history of big pharma corruption. He's worth listening to, whether you like him or going to vote for him or not. And then you have Ron DeSantis, who turned the corner unlike Trump. He hired Joseph Ladapo, who was an outsider. He did a grand jury vaccine safety. You know, he's looking into it with a grand jury investigation of Florida. Also, DeSantis had a meeting with a bunch of people who got injured by the vaccine, and he published that and put it out to the masses. You know, like you have an option to hold, like at least get Trump to care about this stuff, but I don't think he'll ever care because he has somehow convinced people that he's this massive victim. Like, I'm a victim. Don't question me. Just eat it and boo a little bit, but for the most part, deal with it. You know, I just hope that people are willing to pay attention to this stuff, because I think that the elites have unlimited ways to really trick people. And I want to cover this topic as well, because I'm starting to notice this, and maybe some people want to hear this, some people don't, but I guess I just don't really care. When it comes to the LGBTQ stuff, Ron DeSantis's war room, I'm not going to play it because it'll probably get censored, but he's got some sort of Twitter account just supporting DeSantis. They put out this somewhat hit piece on Donald Trump where they showed all of his connections to like LGBTQ stuff and Pride Month. And they were basically saying like DeSantis is further right on LGBTQ issue than Donald Trump is, right? It was an interesting ad. It ticked a lot of people off. Caitlyn Jenner was crying. A lot of gay Republicans were crying. But here's why I'm talking about it, okay? Because when that happened, right? And this has happened multiple times. Please don't cry about what I'm about to say. Think about it logically and make your decision from there. Anytime DeSantis goes to the right of Trump and hits Trump from the right, the Trump campaign moves further left. So when DeSantis put out this LGBTQ Trump hit piece, you had gay Trump supporter or gay employee of the Trump campaign. He was like the national director of intelligence, Richard Grenell. Rick Grenell came out and was like arguing with DeSantis's campaign manager. And he basically said, you know, why do you hate gay people? Because she said she was criticizing Pride Month and being like, you know, we don't celebrate Pride Month. The DeSantis campaign is not into Pride Month. And the response from the Trump campaign was, why do you hate gay people? So now it's hate speech to not celebrate Pride Month. You have to understand, Donald Trump's campaign is further left than Bill Clinton and Barack Obama was when they got into office. Barack Obama's further left now, but when he got into office, he was not this far left. Bill Clinton was not this far left. So like when DeSantis's campaign hits you from the right, Trump doesn't have morals or values or anything to add. He just flies to the left. Like he goes further left than I was when I was 19. When I was a left-leaning 19-year-old, Trump now and his campaign with the LGBTQ stuff, they're further left than I was at 19. And I wasn't anti-gay or anything. I'm just like, I wasn't that far. Like, you could make a joke and I wouldn't call it hate speech. I didn't care, but they care. It's hate speech now. You hate the gays. It's like, I have to say this to anybody. I don't care what your sexual preference is. Not just as a Christian, but as an American and whatever, I don't even want to celebrate my race for 30 days. I don't want to celebrate my sexuality for 30 days. I don't want to celebrate. I don't want to have pride in anything for 30 days. The Bible tells us that pride is one of the deadly sins, and even stuff that you did right, you're not supposed to be prideful for 30 days straight. So I don't have to support anything when it comes to pride for 30 days, let alone homosexuality and sodomy. Rick Grinnell, Trump's campaign guy, who he's probably going to hire again, who is the director of national intelligence, he's going to accuse me and the DeSantis campaign of being hateful because we don't want to celebrate pride over sodomy and homosexuality for a month. Dude, I don't even want to be proud of water for a month or proud of America for a month. Pride is a deadly sin, let alone celebrating homosexuality for that long with the word pride in front of it. That's the Trump campaign. It's hate speech to disagree with that. It's insane. And every issue that DeSantis hits Trump from the right, this is all I'll say. There's some losers in the DeSantis campaign, no question. There's some liars in the DeSantis campaign, no question. And in the Trump campaign, I see both sides. But what I will say about the campaign is DeSantis is running a campaign. I'm more principled than Trump is on this, and this. I'll do a better job and I'll do better administrative work and I can wield power better than Trump on this, and this. That's what DeSantis is doing. I'm better on this issue. And Trump, every time he gets hit from the right, he just does personal attacks and moves further left. On the issue of COVID, when DeSantis hits him from the right and says printing all that money led to inflation, we made a mistake. Even I made a mistake. DeSantis admits he made a mistake. Trump says, you killed so many people with COVID. Trump goes left. He starts parroting CNN talking points and data points out of context without talking about excess mortality, without talking about, I guess like collateral damage from lockdowns. He just parrots left-wing talking points. You hit Trump on COVID, he moves to the left. You hit Trump on the LGBT issue, he moves further left than I was when I'm 18. It's like the Trump movement is an idol worshiping movement. It's about Trump. It's about how much people love him. Has nothing to do with conservative or Christian principles. It's like if you hate Trump or if you disagree with Trump on this topic, that you hate him. Like so many times people say, oh, you just hate him. I'm like, so now what I say is hate speech, right? You think what I say about Trump's hate speech, but you can't explain why. Because you hate to hear it. So now I'm speaking hate speech, even though it's true. If you disagree with celebrating homosexuality for a month with the word pride in front of it, which is a deadly sin, whether you're talking about anything or not, now you just hate gay people. That's what Rick Grinnell says. And Caitlyn Jenner, who's part of the Trump campaign, like you hate. So now it's like, to me, the Trump movement is a liberal idol worship movement. He's further left and further crazy than Bill Gates is on the vaccine. He won't even admit flaw. He admits no mistakes on COVID. He parrots CNN when it comes to Florida data, which he never believed, by the way. He never said it till DeSantis ran. So every time DeSantis hits him from the right, Trump flies further left than Bill Clinton. Like, it's a liberal movement now. They have no core values. The only core value is Trump. It's double standards. It's hypocrisy. It's like if DeSantis hangs out with Jeb Bush, that's a bad move. But if Trump campaigns for Lindsey Graham, that's okay. When Trump worked with Karl Rove in 2020, it's a secret strategy. But when DeSantis does it, it's corrupt. When DeSantis takes donor money, I can't vote for him. But when Trump takes donor money, I don't care. It's hateful of you to even point out Trump's donor money, but it's journalism to point out DeSantis's donor money. It's like, I'll point it out with both sides. The donors control a lot of Republicans, and if they give money, they want something in return. But it's only Trump supporters that think that that's not true. Like, they have this crazy double standard where if Trump takes hundreds of millions of dollars from corporations, which he did, then it means nothing. But if DeSantis does half of that, it means something. If DeSantis takes Trump's leftover donors, it only matters when DeSantis, like, it's not that I like DeSantis so much. I really don't. It's just like the Trump movement is psychotic at this point. It's like Trump's covering up vaccine injuries. They don't want to talk about it. Trump's carting around Lindsey Graham, my least favorite rhino in the world. And people are like booing him, which is great. When the DeSantis campaign hits Trump on an issue like the LGBT Pride Month, which I'm not hateful. I have friends that, say that they're gay. It's like, I don't message them and bother them. Your lifestyle, I'm not God. I'm not your parents. I'm not your significant other, why would I? It's not my place to tell you what to do or to like make you feel bad. You know, I have a lot of friends that consider themselves that, and it's never been an issue for me, but I don't want to be called hateful when I don't agree with Pride Month. I think it's insane to celebrate pride of homosexuality for a month. I think it's insane to celebrate anything pridefully for a month, but especially that, like, that's just like weird. I need to celebrate that for an entire month because Rick Grinnell wants to, and I'm hateful if I don't. Like, this is the right now. The right is the left. They call it, it's like the movement's liberal now. You know, they just default to hate speech. I posted something and I literally just said this. I don't care if it was DeSantis or Trump or anyone, but I told people multiple times, Bill Gates said that Trump offered him a position in 2018 in the White House. I want somebody, David Harris, Drano, any of these people who hang out with Trump and do interviews with them, ask him that question. I just want someone to do journalism because Bill Gates seems like he has the opposite idea of the MAGA agenda. So it would be a little concerning if the leader of the MAGA agenda is doing his bidding. So I just want people to ask a journalistic question about that. When I say that, people say, I'm unfollowing. That's hateful. It's hate speech to do journalism. I don't even trust DeSantis. It's like I'm watching the two campaigns and it's like DeSantis is sticking to what he would do better than Trump. And every time he does it, Trump only has personal attacks, accusing DeSantis of what he also does, which is a Saul Alinsky commie tactic, and then moving further left than Democrats were 20 years ago on the pride issue and on the COVID issue. Like, he's a liberal. You know, it's a left wing. You know, it's like economically, they're not really conservative. Like, it's not conservative to print trillions of dollars under the name of a virus. I understand they had to do it, but they're always going to do it if they have to do it. Like, if they give you a reason and they do something that destroys the economy, and then you just say, well, they had to do it, they're going to keep doing it because they know that you'll make an excuse for it. You know, just like eventually in a couple of years or within the next 10 years, the Democrats are going to have to destroy the economy for climate change. They're going to have to lock you inside. They're going to have to take your stuff for climate change, you know, and the left are going to justify it the same way. Yeah, no, we have to do this in order to save the world from the climate. We have to do this to save the world from a virus. It's not to say that the Democrats aren't in on it too, or that Trump is so bad. It's just like, if you can't stick to your values and just stand firm and say no, there's always going to be a reason. And if they don't have one naturally and organically, they'll figure out one. If they can't sell $40 billion worth of this vaccine right now, but now they have this thing and it comes out and now all of a sudden they have that market for it, it's like, sure, yeah, that's a spontaneous coincidence that wow. It's like, what a shocking coincidence that they met in 2018. We're talking about a universal flu vaccine. What a shocking coincidence that I don't at all, I'm not allowed to think on these platforms. So I'm a total normie now. I think nothing of it. You know, I've gotten videos censored before for talking about Event 201. Event 201 is nothing. It's just a pandemic simulation that they ran 6 months beforehand to just, be prepared for these type of situations and for your best interest. So that's what you got to say on Facebook or YouTube, because it's just totally, it's just total normie platforms. But you get what I'm saying. Someone said Trump says everything you want to hear and does the opposite. It's just a matter of if the base figures this stuff out. I'm just watching the fights on Twitter and I just find it fascinating. I don't want to like harp on it too much, but outside of the emotion and I would say loyalty to Trump or DeSantis, like taking myself out of the situation, just standing on the sidelines, every time the DeSantis campaign hits Trump from the right, Trump's campaign goes to the left every time. It's like, they don't act like it doesn't feel like, to me, and this is my take on it, because I understand that DeSantis is a politician. He's taking donor money. He should be questioned. He shouldn't be just fully trusted. You should judge DeSantis by his actions, not his words. And also, he's done some shady stuff when it comes to certain laws that he's passed in foreign countries. I see it all. I don't agree with it. I'm not going to pretend to just because I prefer him over Trump or whatever. I'm with people who are calling this stuff out. But all I'm going to say is this: when it comes to how DeSantis has governed, these are things that I've picked up. He's capable of hiring outsiders that fight big pharma. He's already done it. Joseph Ladapo was one of us. He was like one of the people calling out the lockdowns, and DeSantis put him in a high-level Surgeon General position. Trump hired a terrible Surgeon General, terrible HHS, terrible FDA. Trump hires horribly. He doesn't hire good people. He doesn't care. You think he cares? I don't think so. Whatever. But it's like, I'm not judging DeSantis by his donors. Or it's like, he did that. Trump has never done that. When it comes to like the school stuff, DeSantis has been leading the way when it comes to the LGBT stuff in schools for years. It's not something that he just randomly did because he had to for his campaign. He's already proven to get results, and he seems like somebody who understands how government works and wields his power to push the conservative agenda more. When it comes to Trump, I don't think he's that big of an ideologue. In some ways, that's good. It's like Trump isn't an ideologue, but in many ways, I don't think he really has these hardcore concrete stances. I've been seeing videos from 2012 where Trump let a transgender person, compete in his universe and pageant, said that's fine. And it is what it is. Some people think that's fine. Some people don't. I'm just saying, like, he's not really that conservative, and that's okay. It's just like everybody thinks he's this guy that he's just not. Like on COVID, he doesn't have any concrete stances. When he went into office, he was skeptical of vaccines. When he left office, he's selling vaccines for big pharma. It's not that Trump doesn't know about it. He knows about it. He's not stupid. He didn't get fooled. He's already proven years ago that he knows exactly what we're talking about. He just doesn't care. He switched sides of that argument to sell out. When it comes to the school stuff, and the pride stuff, like, I don't think he really cares that much. So that's my personal take, is like, I think that DeSantis would probably win the election against Joe Biden by a massive landslide and govern more conservatively. Trump, I feel like, is a lose-lose at this point. I would, put myself out there for Donald Trump if I thought he was like the George Washington of our era and the real deal. But it's like, to me, he's a lose-lose-lose. It's like, not only does nobody stand up against him, not only is his base like, afraid to really push back extremely and just like we'll boo him, but then still show up to his events and write it off. But it's like, I don't think he's as conservative as DeSantis. I don't think he hires as good as DeSantis. I don't think he has a chance to beat Joe Biden more than DeSantis does. I think they're purposely elevating Trump because they know that he's an easy candidate just based off his brand. Like, I would vote for Trump over DeSantis if I thought he was better in 15 different ways. But even if it was going to be a close election, like, he's the best candidate for sure. Got to vote for him, even though it's going to, like, I'm like adding everything up, and there's only like one or two things that I think that Trump is better on. And I think DeSantis is better on almost everything else. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter what I think, because Trump has successfully won the marketing game. Trump has conditioned, and I just want to go through a few things. He's conditioned a bunch of people to think that DeSantis is a rhino because he works with Karl Rove. DeSantis is a rhino because he works with Jeb Bush. DeSantis is a rhino because he takes donor money, and that means that DeSantis is a rhino globalist. And it doesn't matter that Trump has done all those things. It doesn't matter that Trump hires worse people than DeSantis. It doesn't matter that Trump hired Mitch McConnell's wife. It doesn't matter that Trump took more corporation inauguration donor money than Obama and took money from Pfizer. It doesn't matter that Trump hired the pharmacy swamp. It doesn't matter that Trump hired Mitch McConnell's wife. It doesn't matter that Trump hired Christopher Wray based off a Chris Christie suggestion. It doesn't matter that Trump hasn't learned his lesson. It doesn't matter that Trump sold vaccines harder than Bill Gates. It doesn't matter that Trump also takes billionaire donor money and sells out. Like, it doesn't, none of that matters, because Trump has successfully conditioned people to think that only DeSantis does it. And when you post this stuff, people literally don't care. Like, someone posted, I just want to run it back real quick because it's literally hilarious. They said, "I'm glad that we're going to campaign against Thomas Massie because he endorsed Mitch McConnell, and here he is with a picture of Mitch McConnell." So this is the average mindset of the Trump worshipers. They'll say, we want to primary Thomas Massie, the best person in Congress, because he endorsed Mitch McConnell. Here's the thing. Trump also endorsed Mitch McConnell. That's a fact in 2020. It's a fact. Trump, you can go to his Twitter. He says full and total endorsement. So that can't possibly be your reason for wanting to primary Thomas Massie, because Trump also did that. And the picture that they keep using that Drano posted, it has it cut off because it says Trump at the top. It's a Trump Mitch McConnell event. It's not like Thomas Massie just showed up. So why do you only care when Thomas Massie does it, but not Trump has won the marketing campaign. He's lobbied enough influencers. He's controlled the narrative, and he just keeps repeating the lie like a commie, no matter if it's true or not. He's accusing DeSantis of what he also does. If you say they both do it, but I like Trump's foreign policy, that makes sense. I'm fine with it. I'm voting for Trump because he's better at this. That's fine. But if you're going to say I'm voting for Trump because DeSantis is working with the Bushes, it's like you can find all these same connections to Donald Trump and people like Lindsey Graham, but they don't care. So, I think that the right wing is just mind controlled, and we'll see if people wake up or not. Right now, I'm not seeing it. I think a lot of people get it, a lot of people don't. Someone said people want Trump because the 2020 election was taken, but here's what you don't understand. You're ignoring March through December, or you're ignoring March through November. Trump made a lot of messed up mistakes. He dug his own grave. He dug the grave of the country. He extended 15 days to slow the spread, which was a terrible move. He told Georgia that they should have stayed locked down, which was a terrible move. He told Sweden that they should have stayed locked down. It's a terrible move. For 2 months, Trump was pushing communist lockdown propaganda, printed $6 trillion, and did vaccine socialism for big pharma. And you think he's the victim of 2020. He brainwashed you. He brainwashed you into this narrative where he's a victim of a year that he sold out. He brainwashed you into thinking that he's a victim, that he screwed over the country. He screwed over you. He screwed over the country. He shamelessly didn't care for months, but none of that's his fault. I mean, dude, the Republican Party is controlled opposition. I'm fine with it. I'm not happy about it, but it sucks, but it's like, that's what it is. Trump has these people brainwashed. They're completely mind controlled. They're useless. They make absolutely no sense. He's the victim. They only remember 1 month in 2020, not the fact that Trump, McConnell, and all of them were in on it. He's brainwashed them to just say 5 things on loop. The election was taken from us. He's a rhino. He works with Bush. And they just keep repeating these things, even though everything that they're accusing of DeSantis, Trump also does. People don't care. Trump has won the marketing battle. He has successfully brainwashed and manipulated the right wing into being controlled opposition. So, it's like, that's what people want to do. And if you don't see it, you're just going to keep getting set up, which is, if that's what people want to do, it's fine. But, from November to January, my saving grace, multiple things. I'm not a professional activist, so I don't go to I don't fly across the country to go to protests. I don't do that. But in general, it's like, Trump was on Twitter selling the vaccine. Moderna. And everybody that was organizing against the lockdowns and the big pharma tyranny, they all disagreed with it, but they still went to the Capitol because they got tricked into thinking he was like a really good guy saving the world. And a lot of these people are facing prison time because of Donald Trump. A lot of these people had to lay low for 2 years because the feds were on them. A lot of these people had to go to court because they got lured to a trap by a vaccine salesman. And I said for months, I'm like, I don't trust this guy. He's a vaccine salesman. I don't trust him. Why would I fly across the country to go to a vaccine rally for Donald Trump where he's going to convince you that he has a secret plan? And all the people that didn't have that intuition, they said, shut up, anomaly. You're bad. You're paid, blah, blah, blah. A lot of them are facing prison time now. A lot of them are in court. And a lot of people were not allowed to. Now Joe Biden's in office. Now they got every protester to go there and every organizer to go there. And then 2021 and 2022, half the reason the Democrats had such an easy time persecuting everybody is because all the effective organizers who would have been against the lockdowns all got set up because they followed the vaccine man to Washington for the setup event. And I'm not saying he knew it for sure, but it's like, this is what happens when you ignore logic, reason, common sense, and basic reality for idol worship of a politician who doesn't give a crap about you. You get what I'm saying? It's like, you're going to get set up. Like, it sucks, but that's how the world works. If you ignore 50 signs that he's not the real deal, if you ignore 15 signs that he's controlled opposition, better than Biden, but still is, then you're going to get set up. And people haven't learned a damn thing. They haven't learned anything from March to November. They just think Trump's the victim of 2020. Really? After everything that happened? Really? It's like, I can't distance myself further from these people. You're going to get set up again. The left is playing chess. The left knows how foolish you are. They're going to set you up again. And Trump will probably walk you right into it again because he doesn't care about anybody but himself. It's so embarrassing that if I were to tell you a year ago or 5 years ago, imagine if I came to you and said 5 years ago, I said, the opposition of the deep state, or whatever you want to call it, the opposition is going to be led by a guy who sells vaccines harder than Bill Gates, offered Bill Gates a White House position, printed more money than Barack Obama and gave $18 billion to Big Pharma in a socialist scheme, calls himself the father of the vaccine, says it saved 100 million lives, and refuses to talk about the injuries, even though he used to talk about them before he got into office, and that person's going to be supported by Alex Jones, everybody would look at me and be like, there's no way that happened. And then you go in a time machine and that's what's happening. You know, Alex Jones is supporting the father of the vaccine. Alex Jones is telling his audience that he's the best pick. The whole opposition is controlled. You know, it is what it is. I find my joy and solace in other things, not politics anymore, because my team is being like Pied Pipered off a cliff and they don't care and they don't want to realize it. And they get mad and they call it hate speech when you point it out. And they're just begging to get set up again because their obsession over idol worshiping a guy who hawks vaccines harder than Bill Gates supersedes common sense, logic, reason, basic, you know, whatever. And that's just the way things are going. So, you know, I just say it for the people who see it and still care, because I understand the majority of people don't and won't. And, you know, it is what it is, but it's just sad. And I want to say this when it comes to the LGBT DeSantis campaign versus Trump, and then I'm really going to end this live stream. Thank you for hanging out. The reason that America is where it is because of the slippery slope. Everybody knows that, right? The slippery slope just went meh, and now it's like off a cliff. Now you get like the crazy. We live in like the craziest country because we're so far from God, right? Everyone can agree. We're so far from logic and reason and common sense and basic biology. We're at like the end stage of psychoticness. Either the pendulum's going to swing back or America's going to fail. And I'm not a pessimistic person. I'm just saying, like, we're so far gone. It's hard to imagine that things can get more evil than this. Either the pendulum swings back and America's revived, or, you know, things get ugly because it's just getting so demonic and so backwards. It's like unbelievably backwards, right? Everybody sees that. So what I'm going to say is this isn't new, right? This didn't start with a Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light can. You know, this didn't start with Obama doing the Pride Month. Like, I know people want to think that, but that's why nothing gets done. My perfect analogy is if there was a tree growing and you wanted the tree gone and you just kept chopping at the leaves and they kept growing back and you kept saying, well, I'm fighting the left. You're not fighting the left. It's a tree. You got to uproot the tree if you want to get rid of the tree. You can't just chop at the branches and tree. I mean, the leaves will grow back. You know, that's not an effective way of shifting it. And people don't want to hear that. So like Republicans are controlled opposition, not even purposely sometimes. They're just so naive and foolish about how to actually uproot what's going on. With that being said, you know, a lot of these problems did not start with Barack Obama. A lot of these problems did not start with the trans movement in the schools. A lot of these problems started 80 years ago, you know, and people don't even want to acknowledge it. I'll give you an example. And I've been saying this for years if people have been watching my stream. And I saw Owen Benjamin say this on Twitter again. And it's like, he's one of the only people who understands this. I've been saying this for a long time. He's probably been saying it for a long time. But for some reason, no one gets this. Like, is it crazy to have biologically born men playing sports with women? Of course, it absolutely is. And I agree with you. There shouldn't be men playing in WNBA, but or whatever you want to call it. But with that being said, what people don't understand is the WNBA shouldn't even exist. It's not a league based off merit. It's a league based off subsidies. It's not a real league. Like, for centuries, people didn't care if women played sports because if you watch the NBA, it's better than the WNBA because women are not as good at basketball. There's a few sports that women excel at and are interesting. Most of the rest are just forced. And I know people don't want to say that, but it's like most Republicans are first and second wave feminists. And all they do is say, well, I'm against fourth wave feminism. Well, it doesn't matter because you helped it get here. You know, it's like he used an example that was brilliant. But it's like, you know, and I've said this in a live stream like a year ago, but in as nice as I possibly could. It's like, you know, when it comes to female police, are female police on average as good as male police? No one wants to say this, but are female military members as strong as? How come NASCAR is almost all men? Of course, there's a few women there, but it's mostly men. How come, you know, how come chess, the top like 100 people are all men? How come there's certain things that even in a free market, men just completely dominate? Why? Because men are stronger on average. Men are faster on average. Men are better drivers on average. And I'm not being rude because women are amazing. And there's some women that, you know, break the narrative and they're, you know, Danica Patrick. And, you know, I know women that are great drivers, but on average, men are just stronger, shoot more accurately, and they make better police officers and firefighters. So if you're like, I don't like trans people playing sports, but I'm totally fine with all this other stuff. Well, you created the slippery slope. There's a reason that certain things used to be the way they were. Yes, not everything was great, but this idea, it's like, I agree with women in the police force. I agree with women in, the WNBA. I agree with this, that, but I just don't agree with this happening. It's like, well, that's when you get away from reality, you're going to end up at that point. So it's like Republicans allow the slippery slope. I'm not saying to hate people. I'm not saying to, you have to blame men or blame women. We all were born in this era. It's not our fault. It's not your fault. It's not my fault. I'm not saying to look at men and blame them or look at women and blame them. But, all of this stuff has been unnatural for like 80 years. There's a reason that women didn't do this type of stuff in the military. It's not because we hate women. It's because we love women and we understand that they don't make as good of like murderous warriors as men do, just on average. So it's like, Republicans don't understand all of this stuff, and all they could do is like drink Yingling because, there's a transgender activist on their Bud Light thing, and they're like, I agree with this, and this, but I don't agree with that. I'm not trying to be mean. I wish the world was nicer, but it's like that will lead to that. You know what I'm saying? You get rid of this in schools, you get rid of this, you allow women to do this, and this unnaturally. Now you have, affirmative action, and now you have transgender sports, and it's like you're okay with all that, but you're not. It's like it's gonna get there. I wish it didn't. I don't know a nicer way to say this because I'm not being hateful. I think there's amazing women who do amazing things, but it's like, transgender sports players in a women's league is no more ridiculous than a women's sports league that shouldn't even exist because nobody cares about it, and it's only being subsidized by the men. Years ago, they started dumping trying to split it equally, the money between men and women's sports, even though the market's not there to be politically correct. So they've been politically correct for like 100 years, slower. And then everything gets crazy. And like, people are like, I'm just mad at the end stage of it. It's like, well, where did you think it was going to go? I don't know. You can't do all those things and expect there to be results. When they took women and put them in the workforce, now it took them out of the home. Now it put them in the hands of the corporation. Now the kids are raising themselves. It's not to blame people. We were born in this era. We don't have any other option. A lot of people have to work. A lot of dads have to do this. A lot of moms have. I'm not blaming. I'm not hating. God is great. And I love women that take care of business and do anything. It's amazing. It's just like, the old example is like, if you had 50 police officers that were going to save a school, like, would you want 50 men or 50 women there? Most people would say men. Why? Because on average, they're faster, they're stronger, they're better drivers just based off NASCAR data, even in a free market. And it's not to say everyone's bad. It's just like, that's how most people think. You'd want 50 firefighting men there because they're stronger. They could pick up more stuff, on average. So it's one of those things where it's like everyone knows this stuff, but they've ignored it for 40 years. It's, where do people think it's going to go? I don't, it is what it is. It sucks. It's just like, we're so far from the truth that the truth seems hateful now. That's how they get you. They do first wave feminism. They do second wave feminism. They do third wave feminism. They do fourth wave feminism. They, used to not allow you to stay at hotels if you weren't married to the person. Then they allow sex out of wedlock. Then they have like evil, demonic, sexual music culture. And then they have this, and then it's gay, and then it's this, and now it's the schools. And it's like, all Republicans can do is say, I'm okay with this, and this, but I'm not okay with that. Well, unfortunately, I wish it weren't the case because I'm a nice guy, but all of those things lead to that. People think only Islam does all these things because Islam hasn't caved as much as Christianity. A lot of the things that Islam does that people think is so radical are things Christian did within the last 100 years. You just don't know about it because they sucked your culture out and replaced it with Sam Smith and pharmacy pills. So I'm not trying to be rude about it. I'm not blaming anyone per se. It's just the truth is these things all lead to that. And how the left and how the media and how the powers that be work is they shift culture so far gone that the best you could get is somebody that's further left than people were 40 years ago. You get Rich Grinnell calling you a homophobe if you don't want to celebrate an entire month of homosexuality and sodomy, and you say that you don't believe in celebrating Pride for a month, and now you're a homophobe on the right wing, and that's all you can get. You understand what I'm saying? They've moved culture so far gone that the average Republican is a first and second wave feminist. And if you're not a first and second wave feminist, they'll call you a sexist and they'll say you hate women. The culture is so far left, the average Republican is further left than Democrats were 15 years ago, and you'll be called a name if you don't agree with it. So that's how they win. It doesn't matter, Trump, Biden, these are all just characters to keep you entertained. As long as the culture keeps moving so far gone, even taking a simple normal stance is considered extreme. And that's how they get you. And then the right just gatekeeps the slippery slope. The right's just there to tell you that the boat moving towards hell is fine as long as, Caitlyn Jenner votes for Donald Trump. And I'm not being rude to Caitlyn Jenner. Seems like a totally nice person with an amazing family. And I feel terrible even saying this, but it's like, that's the truth. It's like, that's what they're doing. And that's why nothing works anymore. So the best the right can do is just go back 2 steps after they've already walked 100 steps to the other side. And it just doesn't work. Like over time, it's going to fail. It sucks. I wish there was a nice way that wasn't the case, but it's just clearly not how it is. So it's like, I'm not hating. I don't hate people. I don't look at other genders and feel like I don't hate men. I don't hate women. I'm a nice person, but people will call out transgender sports, but they'll act like 80% of women's sports are awesome. And it's like, women should play sports. They should get exercise, everyone, but if there wasn't a market for it 40, 50 years ago, not because everyone's so hateful. It's just if you put the men's league next to the women's league, it just doesn't compare. If it can compare in a free market and people want to watch it, then watch it, like gymnastics or, that's fine. But all of these things have been forced for decades and no one said anything. So it gets to the final result and now everyone's against it. I'm actually fine with transgender women playing women's basketball because it's the natural cycle of life. You have regular basketball. Everybody's watching the men because they're more interesting and exciting. It makes money. They create a league that is subsidized by the men because there's no money in women's basketball. They're actually losing money. And then, men join the league and now it's like the natural progression of it. It's meant to fail. It's going to fail. I'm fine with them joining the league. I hope they all do. I hope the entire league in 5 years is like 90% transgender athletes. It's not hate. It's just like, that's, it's coming full circle where this plan that you had to be politically correct and equal isn't the case. It's like that comic I just showed before where there's 2 different types of dogs. One of them's massive and one of them's small. And it's like, how could that turn into that? It can't, just like someone who's 7 foot tall can't be 4 foot tall and vice versa. Like there are actual differences. Women have a womb and a vajayjay and they create humans and it's beautiful and amazing. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not that someone's better or worse. We're different. We're unique. It's beautiful to step into who we really are and make something magical happen. Women are not built to be warriors on the front lines of a war. I mean, it's psychotic to send your women to war. It's downright evil, but people do it now and they're like, well, I'm against the sports thing, but I'm totally fine with that. Why? I mean, at this point, I get it. Our culture is so far from normal that it's just normal, but I think it's messed up to send women to war. Like, that's not right. Back in the day, people had more respect for their women in their society. They're like, nah, I'm not going to put a gun in their hand and send them on the front lines of Afghanistan. But now it's like, we're equal. We just don't want Dylan Mulvaney on a Bud Light can. And okay, I get it. Ideologically, I understand. I'm a nice person. I don't care what gender you are, who you think you are, your sexual lifestyle. I don't have to do it, but I'm not God. I'm not sitting judging you. I got my own life to pay attention to. I'm more focused on who I am. So I'm not a nasty person. I'm just being clear because you say stuff like this, people are going to freak out. But this is really just the truth of all this sort of stuff. It's like that leads to that, leads to that, leads to that. And all Republicans can ever do is go back 2 steps and make a huge stink about it and go to a Trump rally drinking a Yingling because now Bud Light they don't like. It's like, it's so low level stuff. And the more you realize, the less you want to say. And that's how they get you. They move culture and drift culture so far away from reality that taking the real stance makes you crazy. You support the right candidate, you're crazy. You understand basic biology, you're crazy. You understand the free market and what men and women do well and what they don't, and you're crazy. All these things, that's how they play the game. So drift away from reality, drift away from what's natural, drift away from what's right so far that even if you take like a liberal stance, it's too much. God forbid if you go the whole distance and take a real stance of how it really should be, then you look like a psychopath. You not only look like a psychopath in the left wing, you look like a psycho in the right wing. You know, you'll have Rick Grinnell and Trump's little minions being like, how dare you? It's like, bro, it is what it is, dude. But like, you know, I have a sexual life too. You know, I'm not out banging everybody now or anything, but I'm more Christian and more conservative than I've ever been. But like, you know, I'm not running around for a month talking about like my most extravagant sexual escapades and like wearing clothes and dancing around the like it's embarrassing for a society to celebrate pride and sexuality for an entire month. It's embarrassing. It's pathetic. It's not homophobic to not want to do that. It's like, that's what our culture is. Our culture is what we make of it. We celebrate that for a month, but we don't celebrate our own country. Like it's gross. It's weird. It's creepy. And no, you're not hateful if you disagree with it just because Republicans tell you that now, because the log cabin Republicans have a lot of like lobbying power. It's just like crazy, you know? And I don't hate women, and I don't think that they shouldn't do anything. And I'm not telling them to get back in the kitchen. I'm just saying naturally, it's like a lot of people are miserable now because they've taken people away from their family. A lot of people are miserable now because they've replaced, you know, the family with the machine, including me. It's like I had to, you know, at a certain point in this world, you have to go get stuff and go try to make it. And you have to give up comfort and what you like for, you know, hard times in order to make it. So I'm not knocking anyone's journey, but the left is totally far gone. And the right, in my opinion, are just liberals. They're second wave feminists. I agree with women doing this. I agree with that. I agree. But how dare them join this league? Why wouldn't they? You know, it's going to happen. Someone said they push the exact same things the Bible says not to do. Yeah, it's just, I mean, I wish there was a way where you could just like do whatever, but it doesn't really work that way. You know, it's like, if you don't have a culture, it's going to be replaced by something. If you don't have values and put them on the forefront of your country, someone else is going to take that real estate. And they have taken that real estate. And every time they push, you just have the right, basically gatekeep, which would have been too far. And I think these are things that eventually people are going to figure out. There's more movements for it. Women are intelligent. Women are beautiful. A lot of women are strong and great at a lot of stuff. A lot of women are single moms because they have to be, including my mom, who's amazing and did a great job raising me. I'm not someone that just shames people because their family broke up or shames people because they have to work, or I'm not doing that at all. We're all a product of our environment. If I had it my way, I'd be doing other stuff, but that's not the way my life rolled out. And, you know, I have to make the best of my situation like everyone else. So I just want to say to the women watching or anyone watching, I'm compassionate, I'm thoughtful, and we were born in this crazy time. We didn't ask for it, so we got to make the most of it. But with that being said, you know, there's a lot of things that people are doing that just really is not natural. And the more you say the truth, the more people go nuts at you. One thing, yeah, there's a lot of trad wives and traditionalism becoming popular now because it's natural. It's if your husband makes enough money, it's a beautiful thing to stay home. It's a beautiful thing to raise your kids instead of the government. It's a beautiful thing to have the mom there 24/7 to make sure that Disney's not propagandizing them. It's not a bad thing. It's not hateful. It's not sexist. It's just a better unit. It's a smarter way to do it. With that being said, there's this Twitter user that I want to talk about real quick. Her name is like Pearly Things or something, or Pearl. She's in her 20s, like just some chick. I don't really know. She does like anti-feminism stuff. I don't even know what to call her. I guess she's just like a blogger who kind of sounds like Andrew Tate. But anyway, she said something and it triggered a lot of Republican women this weekend. She said, you know, women are prettier in their 20s and more desirable than they are in their 30s. You know, you should use those time to do whatever. And I mean, you know, it is what it is, but a lot of people were like posting pictures and being like, look, I'm prettier in my 30s than in my 20s. And it's like, you maybe, but you know, I get that it's not nice. Like people don't like to hear that, but she's not technically wrong. You know, maybe there could have been a nicer way to say it, but it would be like me saying it would be like me saying when I'm 60 years old, I'm going to be, you know, stronger than I was when I'm 30. Probably not. You know, your body starts to wear down over time. So it's like, you know, she's just basically putting out a fact. Like that's kind of how it works. And people are like, no, look at me, look at this, look at that. And it's like, okay, you know, if you look good in your 30s, awesome. There's some people that are 50, 60, they look amazing. It's just like that alone is a controversial statement because people don't want to think that there's you know, like a woman in her 20s, like, you know, I don't know. It's like, yeah, I'm 50 and I'm the same as I was when I was 20. It's like, okay, I'm older than I was when I was 20. Men and women have different timelines. Women, when it comes to birth, they, you know, only have a certain time period. At a certain point, you have to freeze your eggs. Like, that's just how it works. I get that you could say it nicer, but is that bad to, I guess, mention and people freak out? You get what I'm saying. It is what it is, but certain conversations are so controversial nowadays just because no one wants to say it. It's like you got liberals being like, look, I'm a wine mom and I'm 60 and that's, I love it. And it's like, I'm a wino and whatever, you know, everybody, listen, life is tough. Nobody lives a perfect life. It's not, it is what it is. I'm just observing all this stuff and it's like, wow, people are so far gone from what things used to be and what things could be that you can't really say any of that stuff without triggering people. Like, to me, Republican men are first and second wave feminists, and most Republican women are feminists. And it's like, you know, they're feminine. They're like conservative leaning feminists. They buy into it enough to go to Turning Point USA, but not enough to actually believe the values in the Bible because it's offensive. Because, you know, this is a whole another topic, but a lot of people's relationship dynamics are just different. You know, they've evolved with the ages, and it's like the women have leverage and power over the guy, and, you know, they're out of the house. Look at all the Republicans in Congress, the women who went into Congress married, and now they're getting divorced. I'm not going to name names, but two of the most famous Republican women who went into Congress with a husband and a family, now they divorced. Why? Because it's not natural for a woman that's a wife and a mother to get into politics and wear the pants in the relationship and run around the country serving other men. It's not normal. It's not natural. People didn't used to do that. Now that they do that, you can do it, but there's a high chance you're going to sacrifice your family and your husband over it. That's just the truth. I'm sorry. Is that offensive? I don't know. It's happening. It's like, you know, okay, you're a mother, you're a wife. Now you want to be a congressman. Now you want to hang out with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Now you want to travel. Now you want to leave your kids behind. Now you want to make your husband stay at home. You can do it, but if you get divorced, don't be shocked. You know, it's like that's going to probably happen most of the time, but that's Republicanism, right? Leave our kids behind, leave our husband behind to serve Donald Trump and be a divorce. Like, it is what it is. I don't know. I notice it and it's like, can I even say that? Should I say that? Is it politically correct? Is it controversial? Is it too far? It's too far, right? What I should do is put on a rainbow Donald Trump shirt and hang out with, like, that's not too far. But what's too far is saying that, you know, women who enter politics with a family get divorced, and it's obvious because it's not the natural role. Whatever, I guess, you know, we'll just be led by I wonder why in the past most leaders were men. Was it because everybody hated women? Was that what was going on? I don't think so. Did women not go to war because people hated women? I don't think so. Did women not get into politics because people hated women? Did women not, were women not police officers because men hated women? No, they just logically looked at the situation and said, a man could probably do that better. Why don't you do this? You know, you're better at this. Let's complement each other instead of switching roles. But now daddy's mommy and mommy's daddy, and, you know, it doesn't work out and people are so shocked. But as long as there's no Dylan Mulvaney on the Bud Light can, that's where we draw the line. But all this stuff Anomaly's talking about, he's a bigot. I'm a nice guy. Life is not perfect. There's going to be anomalies. There's going to be situations. I'm not living the life I want to live, but I'm not offended. In a perfect world, I probably would have got married in my 20s and had 6 kids by now, but I didn't grow up in a perfect world. I didn't understand the values I do. I have to live the life I did. And, you know, I'm working towards it, but I'm not offended if someone were to say, I would have done it this way. Yeah, I could have, you know, if I knew what I knew back then, I could have done other stuff. But also in this day and age, it's also very difficult. There's a reason a lot of women are working. It's not because they want to, they have to. You know what I'm saying? I had to work through my 20s. I didn't really have anything. So if I were to be a father at 25, I would have been a terrible father. I probably would have divorced my wife. You know, I wasn't a man. It took me a while to get here. So it's like I could have went the traditional route, but we don't live in a traditional world, and I didn't have a traditional mindset. So I don't look at that like, oh, that's hate speech if you say I could have done things better. It's just not the world I grew up in, and it took me a long time to get here. And a lot of people do go that route and they divorce, and it sucks, but then they also have a kid. And it's great to have a kid. Even if you divorce, you still brought a life into this world, and it's a beautiful thing. So there's pros and cons to everything. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not hating. I'm just speaking out loud because I think that we've gone so far away from nature that the left are like full-blown communists and the right are like second-wave feminists who are totally cool with the first couple waves of feminists, but act shocked at like the WNBA a lot. It's like the WNBA shouldn't even exist, you know? It shouldn't even exist. It's not based off of merit. I'm fine with it existing, but it's like a charity league at this point. You know, guys are giving it to women and it's a nice thing, but then they yell at you when you don't want to watch it. It's like, okay. I like that women who are good at basketball have an outlet to do that. It's amazing, but you know, it's never going to be what the NBA is, never, no matter how much money they push. So where do we go from here? Anne said traditional equals old fashioned, and that's not the in thing today, sadly. And it's not people's fault. We're in a different world. We've been led astray, and it's not our fault. It's not your fault. It's not women's fault. It's not men's fault. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not hating on anybody. Everybody has to do what they need to do to get by. All I'm trying to say to wrap this up is we are so far away from what it could be and should be, and probably would be better if it was, that's how they operate. They swing it so far gone that the right becomes the left becomes communist, and having a simple biblical stance that everybody had 50, 60, 70 years ago, you know, is considered controversial. Like the way Bryson Gray acts now, and everyone's like, oh my God, he's so crazy. He's crazy in today's society, sure, because everybody's so far left. But if you go back to like the 60s, like he's just a normal Christian. You know what I'm saying? That's what everyone believed. Did everyone act on it? No. Were there hypocrites? Sure. Were there differences? Yeah. But like, it's like, that's, you know, he's like too much for people. It's like, that's how Christians used to be, you know? And it's like, I get being nice and kind, but if you do all these things, you end up where we are. That's just where it ends up. There's got to be a certain point. You got to draw the line somewhere. You don't have to like hate people for it. You don't have to overly judge everyone or whatever, but at a certain point, you do need to draw the line. If they take God out of the schools and replace it with liberalism, that's going to be the youth. That's going to be the generation. And what I'm a little bit nervous of is I think that this, you know, as much as people want to say Trump and DeSantis are so different, they're really actually not. Like it's very crucial for conservatives, just for judges alone, to get a conservative in this election. This might be one of the last elections to even win, because what people don't realize is they've already infiltrated the schools, and the kids are so far left. The kids are up 5,000% identifying non-binary. Like the numbers are rapid. You've lost the youth, whether you want to admit it or not. Some will swing back, a lot never will. Like this might be one of the last elections that you have to really establish some sort of law and order. And to me, whether people want to admit it or not, DeSantis is probably going to beat Joe Biden or anybody by a significant amount. He's got a lot of leverage, a lot of tech people behind him. He's young. He's different. He doesn't cause a scene. He's more conservative than Trump, but he doesn't act like it. Like the left knows this. They complain about it all the time. And Trump's probably going to lose the election or cut it extremely close and then play the victim. But the point that I'm getting to is I don't think the differences between Trump and DeSantis are that extraordinary as Trump is trying to make it. If anything, it's not that at all. And having either of them win is huge. To me, from 4 years from now, all of these kids that are 18 are going to be 22. All the kids that are 22 are going to be 26. You know, it's going to be hard to win an election moving forward. So if this election gets controlled demolition, and this might be conservatives' last chance to really turn things around, I feel like that Trump's just going to control demolition it. I feel like it's the last chance. He's going to suck up all the energy. He's going to run it into the ground. He's going to set his supporters up. He's going to take no accountability. He's not even going to campaign to the people he needs to campaign to. He says he doesn't believe in the election, but he's running. He does believe in it, but he doesn't want to reach out to women. Like, he's going to control demolition this into the ground, and it's not going to be easy for people to win. And he's not even that conservative on any issue. And people just want to support him and don't think about all these stuff. It's like, it is what it is, but I feel like where's God in my assessment? Everywhere. But I don't know. let me know what you think, but I think that the whole circus around this is really just to take people away from what I just said. Like they're told that they're good and they're helping if they just vote for a guy and just complain about a Bud Light can. I think we're in for a rude awakening. I think immigration's not what they told you it was. I think demographics are not what they told you it was. I think that what's going on is not what they told you it was. I think most Republicans are first or second wave feminists, and it doesn't lead to the result. They only complain about the end of the slippery slope and gatekeep the rest of it. Like whether Trump or DeSantis gets in or Biden gets in, I mean, things are going to change and it's worth voting, but the full scope is not that. So in many ways, what I see is that Trump is like a Band-Aid. He's there to tell conservatives that they're right and they just got to support him and that's going to fix everything. And it really won't. So I think it's going to come crashing and burning down at a certain point anyway. And then the pendulum's going to swing back or it won't, but I'm not scared of it. I'm just prepared and ready for the inevitable because that's just how things work. But, I hope it does turn around. I hope the pendulum swings back. I just think there's 1,000 things going in the wrong direction and Trump's not going to fix them. But he kind of just plays this role of like, all you have to do is vote for me. All you have to do is listen to me. I'll tell you what to think. I'll tell you what I'm doing and I'll fix it all. It's all Biden. It's like, it's way deeper than Biden. It's way deeper than Obama. It's way deeper than Trump or Big Pharma. Like there's things that are rolling off a cliff for 100 years. And the best we can do is like complain about something that happened 4 years ago because it's new and it's relevant. But that's my opinion. It's not popular. I understand that. But I think that traditionalism, natural law, God will become more popular in times of triumph when people go the wrong path, when so many kids stray from what's normal and they're depressed and they're miserable and they're on drugs or whatever. God is more appealing. I've seen so many women that have like OnlyFans accounts and now they're like coming to Jesus because, they realized the way they were living was not satisfying. You're going to see that more and more. So God is great. It's a beautiful thing. I'm not saying that things are going to be just so bad and I'm so miserable. I'm not pessimistic. I do just think that the political show is like 1/10 of what's going on. And in many ways it's worth voting and I vote, but in many ways it's like a public show to make you feel like the slippery slope is okay because your guy like puts on a show for you and that makes you fixing the country because you vote for that guy and wear the hat. And it's like, to me, that's what the Republicans are. They're just slowly throwing it. And to be fair, I mean, I do think that there are some Republicans going against it, but they're not the popular ones. They're the ones that everybody hates now. So it's going to be an interesting year. I just wanted to bring up that point, and I stayed way longer than I always want to, but I wanted to say it and word it properly because when you say stuff like this, it's like everything's racist, everything's sexist, everything's xenophobic. It's like everything's hate speech, everything, you hate this, you hate that. I wanted to try to carefully word it because I love women. Men are not to blame. We're not to blame. We are a product of our environment and what we went through. But I do think that 99% of Republicans will complain about a beer can with a transgender on it, but less than 1% of them will say that they don't think that women are as good at men in war and, as police officers. Like that's like extreme. And it's like, that's also biology, just like a man and a woman is biology. Oh, that's biology. So is watch the UFC, watch basketball, watch any physical sport, watch sharpshooting, watch, NASCAR. Why are men dominating when the free market's open in all of these categories? Because that's also biology. That's all, just like a man and a woman is biology. So is the fact that most people, whether they admit it publicly or not, would rather have 50 male police officers or 50 male firefighters to pick them up and rescue them than female firefighters and police officers. And I'm not saying that women can't do it. It's just like, that's also biology. It's biology that men are better at basketball than women. It's biology and basic economics that the WNBA does not perform as good as the NBA. And it's a subsidized charity league because nobody watches it in high enough numbers until possibly this year. Gymnastics is cool. If it could survive in the free market. The Olympics are cool. I'm fine with the Olympics. I'm fine with anything. I mean, I don't care enough to like cry about it. I'm just speaking out loud. It's, I think that some ideas everybody can say and some ideas no one will say, but that's kind of how we get here. Like eventually all of this is going to be obvious and people are going to figure it out. They have to block comments because people constantly make fun of the WNBA when they post it. Not conservatives, not Republicans, not Trump supporters or DeSantis supporters. Most people don't care about the WNBA, and most people feel like it's being shoved down their throat inorganically. This is most people. Most people don't agree with the kids' school stuff. Like, you don't need a politician to like lead you in that direction. Most people agree with this. Now it's up to you and your movement to convince them that you're the guy. If you're constantly driving people away from you, they agree with you ideologically. They just don't like you based on your like culty idol worship of a guy that's not even that cool. So, you know, these are just some things to think about. I love UFC and I love women's stuff. I mean, I think that I mean, it's kind of messed up that everybody's fighting and stuff, but yeah, I mean, some women sell a lot of tickets. Ronda Rousey sold a lot of tickets. You know, there's some cool women's fights for sure. I'm not telling people what they can and can't do. I'm not hating on it. I'm just saying if it works and it's a business model and you do it and people like it, then it is what it is. But if it's forced, if it's all, you know, if it's all like we need to do this, but there's not a market for it, then it is what it is. But to be fair, I don't care enough either way to like tell people what they could do. If you're a woman, go be a pilot if you want. Go, you know what I'm saying? Go sail the world. Go be great at sports. Go start play in a league. Rock it. There's a lot of great women athletes out there. It's just socially, societally, that's just the truth. Like Freddie Mercury was a great musician, but it doesn't mean I need to celebrate. I mean, if I were to celebrate Pride Month, I'd just celebrate like Boy George and, you know, Freddie Mercury because they were actually good at music. I wouldn't be celebrating like random people in the streets just like sloppy showing their dingling in front of kids. Like that doesn't make sense to me. But, you know, I'm just speaking out loud. I'm not telling people what to do. I'm not hating. I'm not saying women have no place. It's just all of these things inorganically got to this point and they've pushed it. And now we're sitting and we don't like the results. We don't like the end result of it. We feel like it's too far, and it is too far. So maybe it's worth considering that some things just need to go dial back a little bit. Just a thought, you know, obviously people are going to hate this and take it out of context and get mad, but what can you do? What can you do? Let me know if you disagree in the comment section or agree. I appreciate you guys hanging out. It's been Dream Rare Podcast. I'm going to chop up all these stories into shorter segments and hopefully people watch them and like them. This has been the Dream Rare Podcast. Thank you for supporting on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc. And just some things to think about. God bless everybody. We're all a product of our environment and we didn't ask to be in these crazy times. There's a lot of blessings. There's a lot of weird stuff. We will win. God will win. And I think that things will naturally fall back into line, but I don't see it coming politically. And I can't act like, just to really wrap it up, I can't act like just because everybody likes Trump and everybody is like Republican. It's like, I don't think to me, they're just putting on a show. To me, they're just basically sucking up all the energy of people who care about stuff and giving you just enough to like go watch them, but not enough to actually fix anything. So that's why I voice some of my opinions like this. And that's why I say what I say. It's not because I hate Trump or it's not because I hate Republicans. It's not because I don't vote. I do vote. I do think it's worth it. I do think they'll give you some things, but culturally, I'm just going to push this point home. The left wins because they shift the culture. The left wins because they control education. The left wins because they do all this stuff. And then people say, well, you know, I don't like what they're doing to public schools. And they're right. But here's the thing. They've been infiltrating the public schools for 50 years, 60 years. The government shouldn't even be this involved in so many schools. You go back 70 years ago and the schools were set up through a different way, through a community, through a church. So all I'm trying to say is not to be rude. Everybody complains about the end stage. Here we are and they're pumping sexuality into our children. This has been 60 years going on. So if you ignore the issue for 59 years and then on the 60th year you get mad at a Bud Light can and a drag queen story hour, I get why. I get it. Yes, it's officially so far that you can't ignore it. But in order to actually look at the problem, you can't just like follow a politician who tells you that that's the problem. The problem has been 60, 70 years of government intervention in schools. They didn't even have a government, whatever it's called, the Department of Education. Go Google when that was created by the federal government. It wasn't even that long ago. So it's like they've infiltrated the schools. They've taken over control of the schools for 60 years. And the best Republicans can do is like complain about the last year of it. I get why we're living in those times. We see it. It's too much. But to fix the problem, sometimes we got to go a little bit deeper and realize where we messed up. And this is the very final thing I'll say. My least favorite thing about the Trump campaign, it's tough because there's a lot of stuff I don't like, is the victim mentality. He keeps telling people, we're the victims. You're the victims. It's the left. It's the election. I didn't do anything. You didn't do anything. You're the victim. You're the victim. They're coming for me, for you. He's brainwashed conservatives to play the victim for his own personal campaign benefit. Like, you're not a victim. You're not a victim of the left. You're not a victim of the country. You're not a victim of immigration. If we ignored problems for 20, 30, 40 years, a real man or a real woman or a real movement takes accountability. You know, all this big pharma stuff, the grave was dug by George Bush and Ronald Reagan through their PrEP and National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. That's how all this came to be. You know, all these pandemic stuff, if you look at Trump's pen, not his mouth, you could see he paved the way for a lot of this stuff too. He's not a victim, but he keeps tricking you into thinking that as long as you vote for me, we're the victim and we're going to change it by ignoring what really happened. And it's like the whole movement's controlled opposition now, because he's telling you that you're the victim of something that happened 2 years ago, instead of telling you the truth that these parties failed you for 40, 50, 60 years. And to get to the core of it, you can't just go back a year or two. That's just my opinion. I can't stand the victim narrative. Like, we had everything taken from us. No, your party and your guy took everything from you before the election was taken from you. He took it from you. No, you don't want to think that? Then good luck. It's not a movement I want to be a part of. It's not like a massive, we didn't do anything wrong. I mean, he's a victim. He deserves it. He deserves everything. He deserves another term. I mean, he shouldn't earn it. He deserves it. Yeah, a guy who said 15 days to slow the spread, extended the lockdown, and gave $18 billion to Big Pharma. Oh, yeah, he deserves to be unquestioned, right? I mean, that's what a controlled opposition fake movement says. Oh, yeah, guys, don't talk about anything that matters. Just say the same 5 things on loop. Say the same 5 phrases on loop and tell everybody how much we deserve everything in this country. We don't need to earn it. We don't need to walk back and find the mistakes we made and correct them. We just deserve it because we go to events and, you know, cheer. And it's like, it's not how the country works, in my view. God bless you guys. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you. And I'll chop these into shorter clips. I understand it's extremely hard to listen to something this long. I'm aware, and I do shorter clips often now. So that's why I did 7 different topics. There'll be more videos in the future. Thanks for being here. Dreamer Podcast. Enjoy your 4th of July. Independence Day. We almost had it taken away from us. Enjoy it. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk. For $5 a month, you can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping this show free, unimpeded, uninterrupted. I'm forever grateful. My free email list is stayintouchwithme.com. So check the links below in the description, or just type in on any browser, stayintouchwithme.com, all one word. You'll find my email list, put it in there, and it's the least annoying email list you'll ever be on. I barely use it because I don't like getting emailed every day or every week. It's annoying. So I don't do it. Stayintouchwithme.com. It helps me take back some power away from big tech. Telegram, t.me/dreamrarechat or @dreamrarechat. Due to censorship, I post all my live stream and videos there. Sometimes I have some bonus content, and I try to give people a heads up when Facebook or YouTube won't. DreamRareChat at Telegram. My Instagram is @DreamRare. Thanks for everybody following there for shorter content. And DreamRareLinks.com. That's DreamRareLinks.com. Has all my stuff. My podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, my music on Spotify and Apple, my Rumble page, my BitChute and Gab page. All my links are found at DreamRareLinks.com. Thanks for watching, folks. God bless you. You already know I'll be back with more content.